Welcome to the Modern Husbands Podcast, where any combination of Dr. Bruce Ross, Christian Sherrill, and Brian Page host national experts who share winning ideas to manage money and the home as a team. I'm Brian Page, founder of Modern Husbands. Sometimes our listeners want more support than a podcast can give, individual or couple support, which I provide as an accredited financial counselor and fair play facilitator. Details can be found at modernhusbands.com. For today's episode, we welcome Laura Danger, a licensed educator, facilitator, and domestic equity advocate who has collaborated with the Fair Play team and is known on social media as That Darn Chat. Her book, No More Mediocre, A Call to Reimagine Our Relationships and Demand More, combines candid interviews, personal stories, and research to expose how unpaid domestic labor and dynamics like weaponized incompetence shape inequity in relationships. In today's conversation, we explore the complexities of emotional labor in relationships, the importance of communication, and strategies for creating equitable home systems. Laura also shares insights from her book, emphasizing the need for curiosity and intentionality in relationships, and offers actionable advice for couples seeking to enhance their connection and reduce resentment. Enjoy the show. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy that you're here, Laura. I loved your book, No More Mediocre, and it's always such a pleasure to have a fellow former school teacher join the conversation today. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. Yes, teachers unite.
That's right.
And once a teacher, always a teacher, right?
You got it. You got it. Well, let's start with sharing with our listeners just a little bit about you and your family.
So this is always the hardest question. And anyone who reads my book will kind of get it. It's all about being a whole person. So how do you narrow down who you are, explaining who you are? But so I'm Laura Danger. I'm a Chicagoan. I'm a neighbor. I'm a teacher, author of No More Mediocre, former Fair Play facilitator, a workshop leader. I'm all sorts of things. I'm also a gardener and a hiker and a lover of audiobooks and movies from all eras. But also I am a wife to my husband, Jack, and I am the mother of a fourth grader and a first grader.
What's your favorite hike?
Oh boy. I found a bunch of really great trails in the Chicagoland area, especially during the initial lockdowns when COVID entered our lives. There's a wonderful book called Transit Hikes. And it's written by a friend, and she figured out how to go on all of these hikes throughout the Chicagoland area. But I love a good national park.
Yeah.
Unparalleled.
Yeah. That's hiking is my my happy place. I'm with you there. So I want to dive into the book if you don't mind, because there's so much rich material in there that I know our listeners are going to appreciate and learn from. In the book, you describe the moment that you and Jack realized that you were stuck in a loop. You carried the mental load, and he felt unsure how to jump in. What helped you both break that pattern?
If I had to boil it down, I would say intentionality. We got caught in the loop, the subtle inequity of me doing more of the admin work and him taking direction or just saying how can I help? And then I would tell him. What we had to do was reframe how we saw our household and really approach it intentionally as a collaboration. So we had fallen into these habits, and we had to figure out how to sit with the discomfort and the resentment that we had found ourselves dealing with. And we had to take baby steps. One of the best things that we did was when a new project hit our plate, we started there. And so, for example, instead of trying to unpack how we did, grocery shopping, that's a big one, something like that, what we did was when our kids entered into full-time school and we had to pack their lunches, that was a really good opportunity for us to sit down as collaborators and say, okay, what's important to us? What are some great meals? Like, how can we simplify this for each other? How do we want to take turns on this task that neither of us want to do? And it was like a fresh slate that we could approach it as collaborators from the jump.
Did you intuitively understand that it's easier to create habits when there aren't bad habits in place, or is it something that you read? How did you come up with that idea?
Well, I think it was learning as we go, because we had tried to. I think we tried to jump in head first and be like, all right, we're going to redo the whole thing. Yeah. We're going to fix absolutely everything. We want this. Clearly we both want this. But as we were, trying to tackle things like the grocery shopping, it became clear that little pockets, little tasks that the new ones that hit our plate were way easier to start with. So it was a happy accident, I would say.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to steal that idea. Now, you write about the Nag Paradox and how women become narrators of their partner's tasks. What is the first step for couples stuck in that dynamic?
I like how you phrase that, the narrators. Yes. So the Nag Paradox is this loop. I'm sure, I swear I have not met a single person who is unfamiliar with the dynamic of just tell me what to do. I want to help, which creates this resentment loop, which then leads to don't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And it's this sense of feeling criticized and feeling defensive. And again, I think that it's a multifaceted problem. One of the big elements that makes this so painful is when there's an imbalance in the emotional labor of it. So it takes a lot of distress tolerance to unpack this, especially, it comes with a ton of resentment. And it's like every time you end up in the loop again, there can be this sense of, oh, this is never going to get fixed. It's like this really, it can bring up a lot of intense feelings. So recognizing that this is, how long did it take you to get into this pattern? It's a long-term project to be getting out of it. Finding ways that you can separate the logistical systems building from the emotional, but also accepting that it's going to be messy.
Yeah.
So I like to give examples of, there's not like some quick tip, 3 steps to getting this right. It does look different compared based on what you tackle first, like the grocery shopping versus the school lunches, and being able to check in afterward. I think that that's a really powerful step of saying I wasn't as curious as I could have been, owning your part and then asking your partner to maybe try something different next time. It's a dance. It's a messy dance, but that intentionality, being curious about what is the other person doing and why, not in a judgmental way, but in a genuinely empathetic way. And then again, checking in afterward can be really helpful of what worked for myself, what could I have improved for myself, and making we're going to talk about this, a good faith ask of someone else.
You brought up something that I think is really important, and I had a podcast episode released previously with Dr. Julie Wayne that focused on this, and that's the emotional labor. And there's a disconnect, we need to disentangle emotional labor from cognitive labor, because emotional labor is so much heavier and it's not seen. Can you explain to listeners or provide an example of what emotional labor is, and maybe share why it's so challenging to shoulder?
Yeah. And I actually want to hear what you all talked about. after we get off of here, I'm going to go deep dive that episode. I really like the explanation, and this is super simplified, but it's editing yourself in order to, it could be maintain an emotional environment or create an emotional situation or be empathetic towards someone else's emotions. But it's considering the big picture of the environment, the situation. And this is the term that Rose Hackman, who wrote the book Emotional Labor, the word she uses I really like, which is the editing, the self-editing. Sometimes when this is imbalanced, you can end up self-editing in a detrimental way. You aren't being considerate and compassionate with the overall environment and being considerate and compassionate about yourself and the other party's needs. You are oftentimes there is an imbalance where one person will deny their own feelings, suppress or over edit themselves in order to maintain an unhealthy or overly protect the other person's feelings in an unhealthy or dysfunctional way. So it's this, but in a healthy way, it would be a compassionate overall collective look at the needs and the emotional environment, how everyone's feeling, using empathy, sometimes looking short-term and long-term of the impacts of how you behave, your body language, your the way that you speak to someone, speak to yourself. It really is considering people's feelings and how that impacts them, you, and the environment.
And that's particularly tough to do if you've had a long day at work, right? You're decision fatigued. We were teachers, when you teach all day, you answer a million questions, you're constantly monitoring and trying to shape behavior. And then you come home and it's like, you're so exhausted. So you say conflict in the book is not something to avoid. And I appreciate that. Like usually it's unmarried people that are like, why is there conflict in marriage? But conflict is rather an opportunity for connection and clarity. How can couples begin treating conflict as collaboration?
Yeah. And actually, I feel like that's an interesting way of building on the role of emotional labor. The other thing I talk about in the book is anger. And I think that anger and conflict can sometimes go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. Conflict does not always mean anger, though. Conflict can be informative. I think that that's really the key to it is when you and I disagree on something or we aren't necessarily aligned on something, there's information about how we feel about it. There's information that we can gain from each other. And there's information that we can get from ourselves. And so I think that when there is a conflict, facing it with that good faith, ask of, why do I do this thing this way? Where are these feelings coming from? Why are you doing it this way? Where are your feelings coming from? It can be a really good opportunity to go to question, maybe we are doing this because of outside pressure. Maybe these feelings aren't actually about how we organize the decorations. Maybe it's actually because I am feeling like you aren't on the same page as me on our values around the holidays. Or maybe I'm taking on more that you aren't noticing and you're unaware of. It's just a really big opportunity to get to know each other better, to understand your values, to have an explicit conversation about something. And the more you have those conversations, the more you learn about each other and yourselves. And the more you do that, the easier it is to step in. Even if things are not 50-50, it's easier to see each other and jump in and reliably in a skillful way, show up for a person in a genuinely supportive way. You have the information.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. But that leads me into the next question. And you alluded to this earlier. You talk about good faith a lot, which I really appreciate. How can couples distinguish like won't do from doesn't know how yet?
That's a great question. Again, I actually really want to hear your take on this, because I know this is something that you've talked about, and recently I saw some great quotes from you.
Oh yeah, Washington Post. Yeah.
Yeah. So my thought, and this is an educator thing. I attribute this to an educator thing. The question of weaponized incompetence, or the question of won't do it, can't do it, doesn't know how to do it yet, is when there is an issue or a misalignment or something isn't being done in a way that meets your family's needs, you can approach it with, I can't, or I can, or I won't, or I will. Or you could approach it with that curiosity. What am I trying to accomplish? Why? What are the resources that we have? And how can we best get those needs met? How can we best meet that goal? When you think about it in a more flexible way, it gives you an opportunity to actually consider the outcome. And so what that would look like, in my household, my husband's like 6'7". I'm sure everyone with kids is thinking 6'7", 6'7". Anyway, so my husband is...
Thank you for that little social media clip we'll be adding. Is he really 6'7"?
He is really 6'7".
How tall are you?
5'1".
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. Okay.
So as you could imagine, there are many things in our household that he's much better. I will be like, hey, I've got a tall guy problem I need help with.
Yeah.
Or he won't want to he'll be like, oh my God, I don't want to clean that. Like if something gets stuck under the radiator, happy to get it. So sometimes we will jump in for each other in that way, and we will accommodate each other. If we are both in the kitchen, I'm not going to go drag a stool out. If I can be like, hey, Jack, can you grab that?
Okay.
I am not assuming that he is going to stop what he's going to do, and he's going to, every single time I need something from the top shelf, stop what he's doing. I'm not going to wait until he's home from work to get the thing that's way up there. I'm not going to store the stuff I need every day way up top in like the highest shelf. In the same way that he's not going to store everything way down low, or avoid any task that he's not going to be like, oh, I dropped something, and wait for me to get home from work to get it. What we do is we move things to be in places where we can each reach them. We do have a stool in the kitchen so I don't have to interrupt him all the time. We say, okay, we do need to get things that are in different places. So how are we going to make that work? How are we going to play to each other's strengths? How are we going to divide things in a way that fits for us while still supporting each other? If he's gone for the week, I'm not just going to avoid ever reaching something up high. Be like, oh, so sorry, I just couldn't get to it. It's this more flexible way of seeing each other as whole people. If one of us is in the middle of something, or if one person has higher or lower capacity, again, it goes back to having the information we need to jump in for each other, to be attuned to each other. And it's like, and letting go of things that maybe with some investigation, some standards that we had just been assuming. But it really is, it's that curiosity. Yeah. Why are we doing this? How can we meet your needs and my needs at the same time to reach our values and our goals together?
Listeners have told us that they love the ideas we share on our podcast to manage money in the home as a team, but want more help than one episode can provide. That's why I'm excited to announce On the Same Page Consulting for corporations, couples, and individuals. Visit modernhusbands.com and click Our Services at the top of the page to learn more about how I can help you or your employees manage money in the home as a team. Again, that's modernhusbands.com. Now back to the show.
I want to follow up with that and talk a little bit about weaponized incompetence. Can you share what that looks like and provide like a gender stereotypical example of how maybe men do that, and then one of how women do that?
Yeah, good question. So weaponized incompetence, again, I think really goes back to emotional labor really plays a big role in how this plays out.
Great point.
Because like if I am consistently doing something unsuccessfully and my partner brings it to my attention that I am doing this, if I respond with blaming, avoidance, deflection, insults, exploding, icing him out, I'm closing the door. I'm punishing him for bringing it to my attention and creating this environment where he has to make really bad choices. It's deal with me being explosive and making reacting by punishing or lashing out, or for him to never ask me and to just do it himself and sacrifice his time and energy, build resentment and anger toward me. I'm sort of forcing him into a really tough situation there. And because I don't want to do it, because I think he should do it, because I think that it is beneath me, whatever the reason in my mind, I'm using my emotional reaction to influence, coerce, or force him into doing something. So I would say like the most stereotypical one that comes up often is like not knowing how to do the laundry.
Yeah.
Shrinking somebody's sweater on purpose, not sorting things, putting a red sweater in with all the whites, saying like, I don't know how to work this. I can't do it. Leaving the clothes in the washer overnight so it gets that terrible musty smell that won't come out. And just doing a bad job consistently so that you won't be asked to do it in the future.
Yeah. And I have a confession. I've done that one time in our marriage really early on. Now, I know. Now I was working 2 full-time jobs and I looked at the laundry and was like, I just don't have, because laundry takes a while. Like I don't have time. So I screwed something up on purpose. And ironically, I actually love doing the laundry now. I find it like therapeutic, something about not being in front of a screen and actually like moving things and making it neat. And I can listen to podcasts while I do it. And I take it to like a different level. Like my wife, poor woman, has to like drive so far to work in the morning. So I iron all of her clothes before I hang them up. So she doesn't have to iron them in the morning because it takes so long for women to get ready. But like, I think that was an example, but my wife's done the same thing. Like we, years ago when we had little kids, there would be like a box with some sort of toy that needed to be put together. And she'd be like, oh, I don't know how to do that at all. My wife can read an instruction manual just as much as I can. So I think like these little things, they show up. And I think they sometimes can create, sometimes they mask a bigger problem. And I think it's really important that you pointed out that there could be, some real emotional tension around it. So like an example would be, and I'm not going to say that this is weaponized incompetence, but I can never handle health insurance. So I handle all things money related in our home, except for that. But it's because my mom had multiple sclerosis and chronic pain. So in our home, like I have like really, I don't know if it was traumatic memories, but my mom like screaming and crying and begging for health insurance companies to pay what they should be paying in the first place. And it was the strategy for health insurance companies to like deny until usually people would give up and my mom wouldn't. So I have like this just deep hatred toward health insurance companies. And it's really difficult for me to handle the bills. I can do the selecting. I can, sit side by side and do the math with my wife and figure out what works best. But actually like getting the bill, that one action, I handle everything else, but that one action my wife does. And that's, for some people, they might say, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. But unless, like you said, unless you're like really curious and you're not judgmental, unless you like understand why is your partner having a problem with this, there could be really like deep issues that can come to the surface where, my wife is just a lovely partner and she does it because she doesn't want me to experience kind of like that pain and frustration.
Yeah. I think I love that you're talking about the emotional aspect on you, the way that she's showing up for you. And that's the piece that I think is so important. If you're having a reaction like that, and like, don't get me started about health insurance. It really is an incredibly emotionally taxing.
Yeah.
And if you have had any experience trying to get coverage, I feel you 100%. And funny enough, I'm better at navigating that, but I'm incredibly emotional about it as well. And so my husband, when we go through seasons like that, he will help with more around the house. Like he will overcompensate. He will take so much more off my plate to give me room because it's so emotionally taxing.
Yeah.
But we got to that place because we both were honest about it. We had to be really logistical about it. This is my strength. However, I feel really emotional about it. And I had to ask for his support because otherwise they just would have been really resentful that like, oh, you can't do this. Like I could have been really defensive with him for him not taking that.
Mm-hmm.
And it took an emotionally heavy conversation for me to ask for help and for him to communicate his needs in that situation and to both own our end of what that looked like, considering each other's needs and not exploding at each other and not blaming each other for those emotional reactions. We just kind of had to be open and honest, and neither of us to hide or do a bad job on purpose or ice each other out. That's when the weaponized incompetence, the way I see it, comes in, is the avoidance, the lack of accountability, the lack of transparency. That's where that comes in.
Do you have an HSA?
We tried that. No, we don't.
Okay.
Too complicated that's like a step too far for us.
So for the listeners, I have a pro tip. This goes into my money kind of expertise, but we have an HSA. And this is the one aspect I love about managing our health insurance. So if you can afford it, that's the problem with HSAs is that you have, as long as you don't get sick or you have enough money, they're really great because of triple tax advantage, right? But here's the trick that has really helped us. So I set up an email account that's just for every healthcare interaction, like every receipt, because you can submit receipts at any time. So like receipts from 7 years ago, I can submit them now and be reimbursed. So what I do is I just send every receipt to that email address, check it every once in a while, but I don't have to manage anything. It's literally all in one place. And then we don't use our health savings account and we just let it grow and you can invest it. So it's a really simple way to accumulate savings, because it's hard for me to believe that our social safety net is going to remain intact in the future. So part of that's like a little financial fear and anxiety for me. But for those of you who have HSAs, it's a really easy way to kind of track everything and accumulate savings. So anyway, I know this isn't a podcast about that, but it's it's a fun tip from me. So
that's honestly so helpful, because we were just having this conversation about the organizational aspect of it. especially if one person has health insurance and the other person through work, and the other person is has the responsibility of actually navigating it. That's a tough breakdown. I love that tip.
Oh, thank you.
you.
So you and Jack implemented meetings, and which I love. You shared task reviews and even safe words for stressful conversations. I can't help but think of mistletoe from Four Christmases. What changes were most transformative?
Learning each other's. Here's just one example. When I would get overwhelmed and some people call it flooding. Like I would get so overwhelmed emotionally and I would feel trapped. And so I would either want to yell because I was not feeling heard, or I would want to walk out of a room. My husband was receiving that as a really huge rejection and would fear that I was going to walk away. Like in his body, it felt like it set off his fear and anxiety, and we were just triggering the heck out of each other. And so having an explicit conversation and both of us learning a bit more about what that reaction is about, and adding in quick things like, okay, I need to walk out of this room right now. I'm super overwhelmed. We will talk in 5 minutes. And the more I actually showed back up in 5 minutes, and didn't just like end the conversation, both of us would be super anxious until it got picked back up. He understood where I was coming from. I understood the impact I was having on him. Learning those communication things about each other and then consistently correcting and showing up for each other. Like I was making him feel anxious when I walked out of the room. So the thing was, I'm coming back. And then showing him I was coming back. Or for him, if I felt like he wasn't hearing me or he was trying to steer the conversation, he recognized what that felt like. And he would be like, okay, what do you think I'm not hearing? And pause and then hear me out. That consistently responding to what I had asked for and what he saw that I needed, that made all of those conversations, both of us cooled down. All our anxieties, the security came back. Like we had to establish that consistency in our communication. And it allowed us to have those less charged, logistical systems based conversations of like, okay, we just actually do need to figure out the lunches. Regardless of our emotional reaction to it, we do need to figure that out. We do need to figure out who's taking the kids to school. We do need to check the emails from the school. It made it a lot easier. So it was kind of a multifaceted approach that really needed to happen.
The school emails. Oh God.
Oh my God.
That. Oh. Whew. I had 3 kids in 3 different, like same school district, but the same, one in lower school, one in middle, one in upper at the same time. Brutal. Okay. Yeah. So many couples think that they need, kind of quote, more help when what they actually need is systems. So what does a functional, equitable home system look like in practice?
Man, I bet you are a wealth of information on this. And I would say, at least for us, I know that for a lot of people, really having clearly defined expectations is really helpful. Sometimes having a calendar, the fair play method talks a lot about, one person fully owns from monitoring, from anticipating, from paying attention to, coordinating. They have the entire task start to finish, and they're the spokesperson for that. They're soliciting the help, or task by task, or you can do it room by room. You can do it topic by topic, theme by theme, but really explicitly breaking that up. And that works for a lot of people. I would say for our household, that practicing something like that made it easier, like I said, to jump in for each other. It was the establishment of expectations, open conversations, things like that. But it looks a lot more flexible, at least in our household. That is the system that works for us.
Mm-hmm.
And the key to that working in our household was abandoning the assumptions. And that was, I would assume that it was my job. And I would just not do that anymore. I would acknowledge it out loud. I'd be like, neither of us have checked the emails. I'm going to check the emails this time. And even just saying that out loud, sometimes we would explicitly say like, okay, let's tackle this the next time we sit down and meet. Or I have said it out loud and now that's kind of on our mental radar. We've got to figure this out because I have now acknowledged that I assumed something. So we really just started saying these things out loud. And now it's a very not emotionally charged, it's a very neutral conversation where one of us will say, hey, I'm going to take it. Or are you going to take it?
Right.
It's non-accusatory, non-judgmental. It's just, you got it or I got it. And that's our system.
No, we're the same. I sometimes I in our house right now, because of the way our circumstances are by design, I handle almost everything, which I actually enjoy. And there are times where it's like, I've cleaned the kitchen 47,000 times this week.
Yeah.
I do not want to clean the kitchen. And, like she'll be like, yeah, I got it. Or like little surprise things. I went to an Alabama LSU football game, my first SEC game a few weeks ago. And when I came home, the rest of the Christmas decorations were done. The house was absolutely spotless and the meal was prepped for the next day. Like, like these are the things that when you have systems in place and there's shared communication, shared understanding, you can then get to the point where you show up for each other in those ways. And they're very loving gestures that go a long way, a lot longer, and a lot better received than candy or flowers or something like that. So where do you see, and this is an important question, I think, for our listeners who want to get started. Where do you see the most immediate wins for couples who want to reduce resentment and increase connection?
I would say that's gonna look different for everybody. And I have found that thinking about the pain point, like the most immediate and important thing that is painful to you.
Yeah.
And trying to relieve that pressure a little bit.
That's really good advice.
And I guess this comes up in a lot of different people who have worked on this or written about this or theorized about it. It comes up, like for me, it was autonomy, a sense of autonomy. I just felt like I couldn't walk out the door, or I couldn't go out of town. I couldn't go out for an evening without communicating what needed to be done in my absence. And watching my husband very easily be like, hey, I'm going to be late tonight, or wow, I got invited out for the weekend to go somewhere. Of course I want him to go and do the thing he got invited to do. And I was so jealous and resentful that I felt like it took a lot more work for me to do that. And so that was so immediately painful to me. And honestly, because he was on board and saw that and responded when I communicated that, that's where we did a lot of work of, okay, if you want to be able to go out on the weeknights, then let's sit down and figure out the tasks that you don't want to communicate every time. What can we work toward? What things need to happen for you to get that sensation? Because once we get there, now we've practiced showing up for each other. Now we're practicing communicating a bunch of stuff. All of those skills end up getting me there. And the whole time I feel like I'm really feeling seen, and he's building those skills. And it just is like it's a really warm, connecting experience to have a shared goal that's explicit and to get that hopeful motion in that direction.
I am so glad that you used that as an example because I know it's gender stereotypical, and I see it anecdotally with friends and family, and in relationships where one partner, and in particular, like where women who have, like my wife has a big job and she travels, and if she's going away and she's answering text message of like, hey, what's the phone number for the doctor? Like, where's the mayonnaise? Like all these little kind of things, they're big distractions from her work, and they add stress and resentment and anxiety. And it's really important for the fellas who are listening. Like if your wife travels, when your wife goes away, when your wife goes on a girls trip, whatever it may be, she needs to be gone. Like she should not hear from you until she gets back, unless it's, hey, miss you, love you, or whatever it may be. Because then she has no leisure time. She has no time to focus on her work. Those are nothing but distractions, and it's like resentment confetti. And
yeah.
You have to focus on getting to that point where you're able to do that. What about men who like genuinely want to do more, but they feel overwhelmed or they're afraid of getting it wrong? How do you suggest they move forward?
It's going to be uncomfortable. Like I think that there is this myth that it's going to be like, flowers, daisies. It's going to just be so wonderful. And one person's going to step back and the other one's going to step forward. And it's just going to feel so good and flowing. And the reality is that this issue of inequity, or how we split things up at home, is incredibly tied up with our families of origin, with our feelings about ourselves and our values. I was just going to add, when I first went out of town for a long weekend, I traveled for myself post baby. I had 2 kids. Like, we really created this balance at home. And then I traveled for 4 days. My husband did not contact me about logistics. He checked in. I sent him pictures. We were talking all the time. And I dealt with so many complicated feelings of not feeling needed. I was like, what the heck? I can just leave now and you guys are fine without me. It was a really weird, complicated sensation because of my internal beliefs about how I created value. If I'm not this to you, who am I? And so if you are someone who's stepping forward and learning these care skills and expressing your opinion, and maybe your partner is like, okay, but yeah, that's not how we do it. It might be uncomfortable, and there is going to have to be some curiosity, some practicing of distress tolerance, some self-soothing, and recognizing that both of you feeling resentful, or maybe even angry or sad, or feeling grief about what each of you missed, it's all okay. And it's all fair, and it's good to hear each other out. And it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing to explore those feelings. But my biggest thing is, if you want to build a life with this person, if you want to build a life with your family and really have a life with these people, investing in the work that creates that life, and investing, having your opinion and your feelings and your values really integrated into your life, you have to do that. You have to be a little bit vulnerable and share yourself to create that life.
Yeah. Well said. Now, if every listener could adopt one habit this week to make their relationship less mediocre and more connected, what would it be?
I would say ask more questions. That's a big one. And that can mean a lot of things. That could be this noticing, just asking yourself, what do I notice? What makes me feel good around the household?
Yeah.
How do I feel? What do I like? What do I not like? Or that wondering, why are we doing it this way? Why is my partner doing it this way? Do we like this? Do we not like this? And just always that like practicing that open sensation of questioning. That's what I would say.
And where can listeners purchase your book and learn more about you?
You can get my book anywhere where books are sold.
No more mediocre.
Yes, no more mediocre. Grab it wherever you can get the book. Encourage your library to order a copy so that everyone can have access to it. Yeah, that's it.
That's you're the first author who suggested that, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and get yourself a copy and then plan to hand it off to a friend. The book was written for the aim of it being hopeful, actionable, and shareable.
Love it. Great conversation. Thanks for joining today, Laura.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Don't leave just yet. Be sure to like and subscribe before you do. And a reminder to visit modernhusbands.com if you're looking for money and home management support in your life. Just click the Our Services button at the top of the page. Again, that's at modernhusbands.com. And many thanks to our co-hosts, our guests, and of course, all of you for joining today.